which says in Luke 14:26, it says that if I don't hate my life, my wife and my parents, then I can't be a follower of Jesus. Please explain, I'm confused. And this is a statement from Jesus, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'll
go ahead, Greg.
You'll find in that passage that it's about the cost of following him, and that he goes on to say, basically, you've got to be willing to give up everything to follow me. So it's not saying that you've got to hate somebody as such. You've just got to be willing to give up everything to follow me. If your wife is someone that's going to hold you back from following Jesus, well, then you've got to, reject that, influence on your relationship with Christ. So, yeah, I think that's what he's really getting at.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you look at the original Greek, it's Strong's number 3404, misio, which means to hate, or it can mean to love less or esteem less. So esteem less than your love for the Lord. That's what it's saying. He's saying, compared to your love for me, nothing should compare. I should be number one in your life. I love my wife. I love my kids, but they know I love the Lord more, and I expect them to love the Lord more than they love me.
And that was the problem for the rich young ruler, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He did everything right, it seemed, except he wouldn't part with his money, and went away sad.
Yeah.
To give you a personal experience from my situation with my lovely wife, as before we were married, I felt very ooey-gooey, emotional, lovey-dovey, and I said to her one night, "Darling, I love you with all my heart." And she eyes sparkled and all those sort of things, right? And then I went home and I read that passage, and I thought, oh, no, I'm not allowed to love her with all my heart. Jesus takes that first priority. Yeah. So the next night I went to her and I said, "Darling, that conversation we had last night? Yes. Would you mind if I took a bit of that love back, because I've got to give it all to Jesus, not to you?" And she graciously not only smiled and giggled a bit, but she said, "Yes, you go right ahead." So I knew she was going to be a good wife eventually. So that was great. So praise the Lord that this is a choice you must make, whether it comes to careers, whether it comes, Jesus is first in everything. Sometimes it will occasionally lead to, like some of the people who've been persecuted, the husband or the wife will give in and bow the knee to the authority, and the other partner has to make clear that my choice is Jesus first, even if it costs me you. Right now, that's what the point is. Do you love Jesus first with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might? And that's the first and the greatest commandment. After that, you love your neighbor as yourself. So keep that in mind. That's the perspective.
And you'll find as well with a lot of these things, the statements of Jesus, they're obviously very true, but they're being posed by Jesus in order to challenge a certain person or a certain mindset. So case in point, the rich young ruler, right, who came up to him, the first thing he said was, "Good master." And Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? There's nobody good but God." Now Jesus was God, and therefore Jesus was good, and he was the only one who had a claim to that goodness because he was God. So he wasn't trying to challenge the rich young ruler on whether he was God or not. He was trying to challenge the way that the rich young ruler was viewing life. Oh, he's good, they're good, we're all good. And then the next thing he said to the instruction he gave was to go and sell all of your stuff and give it to the poor and come and follow me, right? Well, okay, does that mean, and I know Christians who've taken this literally, that we should be poor and destitute and sell our house and live off nothing and give it all? Well, if you take things literally like that, that's between you and God, but understand the point that Christ is making behind this. Are you prepared to do that for me? Are you prepared to, if I call you to live like that? Are you prepared to give up everything in the world, even your wife, even your children, for me? I mean, think about what Abraham had to do. He had to almost go through, and would have gone through, that was the point of God's testing him, to actually sacrificing his own son, right, in order to prove that he'd put God first and foremost. And there's a beautiful parallel between that and God the Father, who gave up God the Son in order to come, who did go through with that sacrifice, right? So if God the Father is willing to let God the Son go to the cross, and God the Son is willing to submit to the will of God the Father and go to the point of death to take on the sins of the world, are we willing to submit to God in that same way?
I'll give you one very, it's not severe, but it's a really true practical example. A friend of mine who ended up on the mission field actually got converted middle life and went and told his wife that he loved Jesus now. And anyway, she didn't respond well to this at all. And the marriage relationship started to go downhill to the point where she said, "You've got to choose. You either choose Jesus or choose me." And she expected him to cave in because he'd been a good husband. She'd been a fairly loving wife. And he said, "In that case, I will choose Jesus."
Mhm.
Right. And she had made that option clear, and she burst into tears and got saved.
Yeah,
Because
awesome.
Jesus was worth loving more than her, and she knew nothing about such love.